Abide with Me by Henry Francis Light. Read for LibriVox.org by Paula Messina. Abide with me. Fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Swift to its close ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories pass away. Change and decay in all around I see. O thou who changest not, abide with me. I need thy presence every passing hour. What but thy grace can foil the tempter's power? Who like thyself, my guide and stay can be? Through cloud and sunshine, Lord, abide with me. I fear no foe, with thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight, and tears no bitterness. Where is death's sting? Where grave thy victory? I triumph still, if thou abide with me. Hold thou thy cross before my closing eyes. Shine through the gloom, and point me to the skies. Heaven's morning breaks, and earth's vain shadows flee. In life, in death, O Lord, abide with me. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Excerpt from Cynewulf's Advent, translated by Sir Israel Gollancz. Read for LibriVox.org by Joanna Michael Hoyt. To the King. Thou art the wall-stone that the workmen of old rejected from the work. Well it befits thee to become the head of the kingly hall, to join in one the giant walls in thy fast embrace, the flint unbroken, that through all the earth every eye may see and marvel evermore. O mighty prince, declare thy accomplishments through the craft of thy hand, truth-fast, triumphant, and untorn from its place leave wall against wall. For the work it is needful that the craftsman should come, and the king himself, and raise that roof that lies ruined and decayed, fallen from its frame. He formed that body, the Lord of life, and its limbs of clay, and shall free from foemen the frightened in heart, the downcast band, as he did full oft. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
After Apple Picking by Robert Frost, read for LibriVox.org by Jason Humphreys. My long two-pointed ladder's sticking through a tree toward heaven still, and there's a barrel that I didn't fill beside it, and there may be 2 or 3 apples I didn't pick upon some bough. But I am done with apple picking now. Essence of winter sleep is on the night, the scent of apples. I'm drowsing off. I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight I got from looking through a pane of glass I skimmed this morning from the drinking trough and held against the world of hoary grass. It melted, and I let it fall and break, but I was well upon my way to sleep before it fell, and I could tell what form my dreaming was about to take. Magnified apples appear and disappear, stem end and blossom end, and every fleck of russet showing clear. My instep arch not only keeps the ache, it keeps the pressure of a ladder round. I feel the ladder sway as the boughs bend, and I keep hearing from the cellar bin the rumbling sound of load on load of apples coming in. For I have had too much of apple picking. I am overtired of the great harvest I myself desired. There were 10,000 fruit to touch, cherish in hand, lift down, and not let fall. For all that struck the earth, no matter if not bruised or spiked with stubble, went surely to the cider apple heap as of no worth. One can see what will trouble the sleep of mine, whatever sleep it is. Were he not gone, the woodchuck could say whether it's like his long sleep, as I describe its coming on, or just some human sleep. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Alone by Edgar Allan Poe, read for libraryvox.org by Casey Cassess. From childhood's hour I have not been, as others were I have not seen, as others saw I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source I have not taken, my sorrow I could not awaken, my heart to joy at the same tone, and all I loved alone. Then, in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm and the cloud that took the form, when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe, read for LibriVox.org by Matt Lapata. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than a love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsmen came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know, in this kingdom by the sea, that the wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above nor demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Arabia by Walter de la Mare, read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. Far are the shades of Arabia, where the princes ride at noon, mid the verdurous vales and thickets, under the ghost of the moon. And so dark is that vaulted purple, flowers in the forest rise, and toss into blossom 'gainst the phantom stars, pale in the noonday skies. Sweet is the music of Arabia in my heart when out of dreams I still in the thin clear murk of dawn descry her gliding streams, hear her strange lutes on the green banks ring loud with the grief and delight of the dim-silked, dark-haired musicians in the brooding silence of night. They haunt me, her lutes and her forests. No beauty on earth I see, but shadowed with that dream recalls her loveliness to me. Still eyes look coldly upon me, cold voices whisper and say, he is crazed with the spell of far Arabia. They have stolen his wits away. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Autumn, a Dirge by Percy Bysshe Shelley. read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sherr. The warm sun is failing. The bleak wind is wailing. The bare boughs are sighing. The pale flowers are dying. And the year on the earth, her deathbed in a shroud of leaves dead, is lying. Come, months, come away, from November to May. In your saddest array, follow the bier of the dead cold year, and like dim shadows, watch by her sepulchre. The chill rain is falling, the nipped worm is crawling, the rivers are swelling, the thunder is knelling for the year. The blithe swallows are flown, and the lizards each gone to his dwelling. Come, months, come away, put on white, black, and grey. Let your light sisters play. Ye follow the bier of the dead cold year, and make her grave green with tear on tear. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Christmas Eve by Robert Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Joanna Michael Hoyt. 1. Out of the little chapel I burst into the fresh night air again. 5 minutes full I waited first in the doorway, to escape the rain that drove in gusts down the common's centre at the edge of which the chapel stands, before I plucked up heart to enter. Heaven knows how many sorts of hands reached past me, groping for the latch of the inner door that hung on catch more obstinate the more they fumbled, till, giving way at last with a scold of the crazy hinge, in squeezed or tumbled one sheep more to the rest in fold, and left me irresolute, standing sentry in the sheepfold's lath and plaster entry, 6 feet long by 3 feet wide, partitioned off from the vast inside. I blocked up half of it at least. No remedy, the rain kept driving. They eyed me much as some wild beast, that congregation, still arriving, some of them by the main road, white a long way past me into the night, skirting the common, then diverging, not a few suddenly emerging from the common's self through the paling gaps. They house in the gravel pits, perhaps, where the road stops short with its safeguard border of lamps, as tired of such disorder. But the most turned in yet more abruptly from a certain squalid knot of alleys, where the town's bad blood once slept corruptly, which now the little chapel rallies and leads into day again, its priestliness lending itself to hide their beastliness so cleverly, thanks in part to the mason, and putting so cheery a whitewashed face on those neophytes too much in lack of it, that, where you cross the common as I did, and meet the party thus presided, Mount Zion, with Love Lane at the back of it, they front you as little disconcerted as, bound for the hills, her fate averted, and her wicked people made to mind him, Lot might have marched with Gomorrah behind him. 2. Well, from the road, the lanes, or the common, in came the flock, the fat, weary woman panting and bewildered, down clapping her umbrella with a mighty report, grounded it by me, wry and flapping, a wreck of whalebones. Then, with snort like a startled horse at the interloper, who humbly knew himself improper but could not shrink up small enough, round to the door, and in, the gruff hinges' invariable scold making my very blood run cold. Prompt in the wake of her, up pattered on broken clogs the many-tattered little old-faced, peeking sister-turned-mother of the sickly babe she tried to smother somehow up, with its spotted face, from the cold on her breast, the one warm place. She too must stop, wring the poor ends dry of a draggled shawl, and add thereby her tribute to the doormat, sopping already from my own clothes dropping, which yet she seemed to grudge I should stand on. Then, stooping down to take off her pattens, she bore them defiantly, in each hand one, planted together before her breast and its babe, as good as a lance in rest. Close on her heels the dingy satins of a female something past me flitted, with lips as much too white as a streak lay far too red on each hollow cheek. And it seemed the very door-hinge pitied all that was left of a woman once, holding at least its tongue for the nonce. Then a tall yellow man, like the penitent thief, with his jaw bound up in a handkerchief, and eyelids screwed together tight, led himself in by some inner light. And except from him, from each that entered I got the same interrogation. "What, you the alien? You have ventured to take with us, the elect, your station? A carer for none of it, a Gallio! Thus, plain as print, I read the glance at a common prey, in each countenance as of huntsman giving his hounds the tally-ho. And when the doors cried round their wonder, the draught it all was sent in shutting made the flame of the single tallow candle in the cracked square lantern I stood under shoot its blue lip at me, rebutting, as it were, the luckless cause of scandal. I verily fancied the zealous light, in the chapel's secret too, for spite would shudder itself clean off the wick, with the airs of a St. John's candlestick. There was no standing it much longer. Good folks, thought I, as resolve grew stronger, this way you perform the Grand Inquisitor when the weather sends you a chance visitor. You are the men, and wisdom shall die with you, and none of the old 7 churches vie with you. But still, despite the pretty perfection to which you carry your trick of exclusiveness, and, taking God's word under wise protection, correct its tendency to diffusiveness, and bid one reach it over hot ploughshares. Still, as I say, though you've found salvation, if I should choose to cry, as now, shares! See if the best of you bars me my ration. I prefer, if you please, for my expounder of the laws of the feast's own founder. Mine's the same right with your poorest and sickliest, supposing I don the marriage vestiment. So shut your mouth and open your testament, and carve me my portion at your quickliest. Accordingly, as a shoemaker's lad with wizened face in want of soap, and wet apron round his waist like a rope, after stopping outside, for his cough was bad, to get the fit over, poor gentle creature, and so avoid disturbing the preacher, passed in, I sent my elbow spike-wise at the shutting door, and entered likewise, received the hinge's accustomed greeting, and crossed the threshold's magic pentacle, and found myself in full conventicle, to wit, in Zion Chapel meeting on the Christmas Eve of '49, which, calling its flock to their special clover, found all assembled, and one sheep over, whose lot, as the weather pleased, was mine. 3. I very soon had enough of it. The hot smell and the human noises and my neighbour's coat, the greasy cuff of it, were a pebble-stone that a child's hand poises, compared with the pig of lead-like pressure of the preaching man's immense stupidity as he poured his doctrine forth, full measure to meet his audience's avidity. You needed not the wit of the Sibyl to guess the cause of it all in a twinkling. No sooner our friend had got an inkling of treasure hid in the Holy Bible, whene'er 'twas the thought first struck him how death at unawares might duck him deeper than the grave, and quench the gin-shop's light in hell's grim drench, then he handled it so, in fine irreverence, as to hug the book of books to pieces, and a patchwork of chapters and texts in severance, not improved by the private dog's ears and creases, having clothed his own soul with, he'd fain see equipped yours. So tossed you again your holy scriptures, and he picked them up, in a sense, no doubt. Nay, had but a single face of my neighbours appeared to suspect that the preacher's labours were help which the world could be saved without, 'tis odds but I might have borne in quiet a qualm or two at my spiritual diet, or, who can tell, perchance even mustered somewhat to urge in behalf of the sermon. But the flock sat on, divinely flustered, sniffing, methought, its dew of Hermon with such content in every snuffle, as the devil inside us loves to ruffle. My old fat woman purred with pleasure, and thumb round thumb went twirling faster, while she, to his periods keeping measure, maternally devoured the pastor. The man with the handkerchief untied it, showed us a horrible wen inside it, gave his eyelids yet another screwing, and rocked himself as the woman was doing. The shoemaker's lad, discreetly choking, kept down his cough. 'Twas too provoking. My gorge rose at the nonsense and stuff of it. So, saying like Eve when she plucked the apple, I wanted a taste, and now there's enough of it, I flung out of the little chapel. 4. There was a lull in the rain, a lull in the wind too. The moon was risen, and would have shone out pure and full, but for the ramparted cloud prison block on block built up in the west, for what purpose the wind knows best, who changes his mind continually. And the empty other half of the sky seemed in its silence as if it knew what, any moment, might look through a chance gap in that fortress massy. Through its fissures you got hints of the flying moon by the shifting tints, now a dull lion colour, now brassy burning to yellow, and whitest yellow like a furnace smoke just ere flames bellow, all a simmer with intense strain to let her through, then blank again, at the hope of her appearance failing. Just by the chapel, a break in the railing shows a narrow path directly across. 'Tis ever dry walking there, on the moss. Besides, you go gently all the way uphill. I stooped under and soon felt better. My head grew lighter, my limbs more supple as I walked on, glad to have slipped the fetter. My mind was full of the scene I had left, that placid flock, that pastor vociferant. How this outside was pure and different. The sermon now. What a mingled weft of good and ill. Were either less, its fellow had coloured the whole distinctly. But alas for the excellent earnestness, and the truths, quite true if stated succinctly, but as surely false in their quaint presentment, however to pastor and flock's contentment. Say rather, such truths looked false to your eyes, with his provings and parallels twisted and twined, till how could you know them, grown double their size in the natural fog of the good man's mind, like yonder spots of our roadside lamps haloed about with the common damps? Truth remains true, the fault's in the prover. The zeal was good and the aspiration. And yet, 50 times over, Pharaoh received no demonstration by his baker's dream of basket 3 of the doctrine of the Trinity, although as our preacher thus embellished it, apparently his hearers relished it with so unfeigned a gust, who knows if they did not prefer our friend to Joseph? But so it is everywhere, one way with all of them. These people have really felt, no doubt, a something the motion they style the call of them. And this is their method of bringing about, by a mechanism of words and tones, so many texts and so many groans, a sort of reviving and reproducing, more or less perfectly, who can tell, the mood itself, which strengthens by using. And how that happens I understand well. A tune was born in my head last week, out of the thump, thump, and shriek, shriek of the train as I came by it up from Manchester. And when, next week, I take it back again, my head will sing to the engine's clack again, while it only makes my neighbour's haunches stir, finding no dormant musical sprout in him, as in me, to be jolted out. 'Tis the taught already that profits by teaching. He gets no more from the railway's preaching than from this preacher who does the rails office, I, whom therefore the flock cast a jealous eye on. Still, why paint over their door, Mount Zion, to which all flesh shall come, saith the prophecy? 5. But wherefore be harsh on a single case? After how many modes this Christmas Eve does the self-same weary thing take place? The same endeavour to make you believe, and with much the same effect, no more. Each method abundantly convincing, as I say, to those convinced before, but scarce to be swallowed without wincing by the not as yet convinced. For me, I have my own church equally, and in this church my faith sprang first, I said, as I reached the rising ground, and the wind began again, with a burst of rain in my face, and a glad rebound from the heart beneath, as if, God speeding me, I entered his church door, nature leading me. In youth I looked to these very skies, and probing their immensities I found God there, his visible power, yet felt in my heart, amid all its sense of the power, an equal evidence that his love, there too, was the nobler dower. For the loving worm within its clod were diviner than a loveless God amid his worlds, I will dare to say. You know what I mean. God's all, man's not, but also God, whose pleasure brought man into being, stands away as it were a handbreadth off, to give room for the newly made to live, and look at him from a place apart, and use his gifts of brain and heart, given indeed, but to keep forever. Who speaks of man, then, must not sever man's very elements from man, saying, but all is God's, whose plan was to create man, and then leave him able, his own word saith, to grieve him, but able to glorify him too, as a mere machine could never do, that prayed or praised, all unaware of its fitness for aught but praise and prayer. Made perfect as a thing, of course. Man, therefore, stands on his own stock of love and power as a pinpoint rock, and, looking to God who ordained divorce of the rock from his boundless continent, sees, in his power made evident, only excess by a millionfold o'er the power God gave man in the mould. For note, man's hand, first formed to carry a few pounds' weight, when taught to marry its strength with an engine's, lifts a mountain, advancing in power by 1 degree. And why count steps through eternity? But love is the ever-springing fountain. Man may enlarge or narrow his bed for the water's play, but the water-head, how can he multiply or reduce it? As easy create it, as cause it to cease. He may profit by it, or abuse it, but 'tis not a thing to bear increase as power does. Be love less or more in the heart of man, he keeps it shut or opes it wide as he pleases, but love's sum remains what it was before. So, gazing up, in my youth, at love as seen through power, ever above all modes which make it manifest, my soul brought all to a single test, that he, the eternal first and last, who, in his power, had so surpassed all man conceives of what is might, whose wisdom too showed infinite, would prove as infinitely good, would never, my soul understood, with power to work all love desires, bestow e'en less than man requires, that he who endlessly was teaching, above my spirit's utmost reaching, what love can do in the leaf or stone, so that to master this alone, this done in the stone or leaf for me, I must go on learning endlessly, would never need that I, in turn, should point him out defect unheeded, and show that God had yet to learn what the meanest human creature needed, not life, to wit, for a few short years, tracking his way through doubts and fears, while the stupid earth on which I stay suffers no change, but passive adds its myriad years to myriads, though I, he gave it to, decay, seeing death come and choose about me, and my dearest ones depart without me. No, love, which on earth, amid all the shows of it, has ever been seen the sole good of life in it, the love ever growing there, spite of the strife in it, shall arise, made perfect, from death's repose of it, and I shall behold thee face to face, O God, and in thy light retrace how in all I loved here still wast thou, whom pressing to, then, as I fain would now, I shall find as able to satiate the love, thy gift, as my spirit's wonder thou art able to quicken and sublimate with this sky of thine that I now walk under, and glory in thee for as I gaze. Thus, oh, let men keep their ways of seeking thee in a narrow shrine. Be this my way, and this is mine. 6. For lo, what think you? Suddenly the rain and the wind ceased, and the sky received at once the full fruition of the moon's consummate apparition. The black cloud barricade was riven, ruined beneath her feet, and driven deep in the west, while, bare and breathless, north and south and east lay ready for a glorious thing that, dauntless, deathless, sprang across them and stood steady. 'Twas a moon rainbow, vast and perfect, from heaven to heaven extending, perfect as the mother moon's self full in face. It rose distinctly at the base with its 7 proper colors chorded, which still, in the rising, were compressed, until at last they coalesced, and supreme the spectral creature lorded in a triumph of whitest white, above which intervened the night. But above night, too, like only the next, the second of a wondrous sequence, reaching in rare and rarer frequence, till the heaven of heavens were circumflexed, another rainbow rose, a mightier, fainter, flushier, and flightier, rapture dying along its verge. Oh, whose foot shall I see emerge? Whose, from the straining topmost dark on to the keystone of that ark? 7. This sight was shown me there and then, me, out of a world of men singled forth, as the chance might hap to another if, in a thunderclap, where I heard noise and you saw flame, some one man knew God called his name. For me, I think I said, Appear! Good were it to be ever here. If thou wilt, let me build to thee service tabernacles 3, where, forever in thy presence, in ecstatic acquiescence, far alike from thriftless learning and ignorance's undiscerning, I may worship and remain. Thus, at the show above me, gazing with upturned eyes, I felt my brain glutted with the glory, blazing throughout its whole mass, over and under, until at length it burst asunder, and out of it bodily there streamed the too much glory, as it seemed, passing from out me to the ground, then palely serpentining round into the dark with mazy error. 8. All at once I looked up with terror. He was there, he himself with his human air, on the narrow pathway just before. I saw the back of him no more. He had left the chapel then as I forgot all about the sky. No face, only the sight of a sweepy garment, vast and white, with a hem that I could recognize. I felt terror, no surprise. My mind filled with the cataract at one bound of the mighty fact. I remember he did say doubtless that, to this world's end, where 2 or 3 should meet and pray, he would be in their midst, their friend. Certainly he was there with them. And my pulses leaped for joy of the golden thought without alloy. Then I saw his very vestures hem. Then rushed the blood back, cold and clear, with a fresh enhancing shiver of fear. And I hastened, cried out while I pressed to the salvation of the vest. But not so, Lord. It cannot be that thou indeed art leaving me. Me that have despised thy friends, did my heart make no amends? Thou art the love of God. Above its power didst hear me place his love, and that was leaving the world for thee. Therefore thou must not turn from me as I had chosen the other part. Folly and pride o'ercame my heart. Our best is bad, nor bears thy test. Still it should be our very best. I thought it best that thou, the Spirit, be worshipped in spirit and in truth, and in beauty, as even we require it. Not in the forms burlesque, uncouth I left but now, as scarcely fitted for thee. I knew not what I pitied. But all I felt there, right or wrong, what is it to thee who curest sinning? Am I not weak as thou art strong? I have looked to thee from the beginning, straight up to thee through all the world which, like an idle scroll, lay furled to nothingness on either side. And since the time thou wast descried, spite of the weak heart, so have I lived ever, and so fain would die, living and dying thee before. But if thou leavest me... 9. Less or more, I suppose that I spoke thus, when, have mercy, Lord, on us. The whole face turned upon me full, and I spread myself beneath it, as when the bleacher spreads, to seethe it in the cleansing sun, his wool, steeps in the flood of noontide whiteness some denied, discoloured web. So lay I, saturate with brightness. And when the flood appeared to ebb, lo, I was walking, light and swift, with my senses settling fast and steadying, but my body caught up in the whirl and drift of the vesture's amplitude, still eddying on, just before me, still to be followed, as it carried me after with its motion. What shall I say? As a path were hollowed, and a man went weltering through the ocean, sucked along in the flying wake of the luminous water-snake. Darkness and cold were cloven, as through I passed, upborne yet walking too, and I turned to myself at intervals. So he said, so it befalls. God, who registers the cup of mere cold water, for his sake to a disciple rendered up, disdains not his own thirst to slake at the poorest love was ever offered. And because my heart I proffered with true love trembling at the brim, he suffers me to follow him forever my own way, dispensed from seeking to be influenced by all the less immediate ways that earth, in worships manifold, adopts to reach, by prayer and praise, the garment's hem which, lo, I hold. 10. And so we crossed the world and stopped. For where am I, in city or plain, since I am ware of the world again? And what is this that rises propped with pillars of prodigious girth? Is it really on the earth, this miraculous dome of God? Has the angel's measuring rod, which numbered cubits, gem from gem, twixt the gates of the New Jerusalem meted it out? And what he meted have the sons of men completed, binding, ever as he bade, columns in the colonnade with arms wide open to embrace the entry of the human race to the breast of... What is it, yon building ablaze in front, all paint and gilding, with marble for brick, and stones of price for garniture of the edifice? Now I see. It is no dream. It stands there, and it does not seem. Forever in pictures thus it looks, and thus have I read of it in books often in England, leagues away, and wondered how these fountains play, growing up eternally each to a musical water-tree, whose blossoms drop, a glittering boon, before my eyes in the light of the moon, to the granite layers underneath. Liar and dreamer in your teeth! I, the sinner that speak to you, was in Rome this night, and stood, and knew both this and more. For see, the dark is rent, mine eye is free to pierce the crust of the outer wall, and I view inside, and all there, all as the swarming hollow of a hive, the whole basilica alive. Men in the chancel, body and nave, men on the pillars' architrave, men on the statues, men on the tombs with popes and kings in their porphyry wombs, all famishing in expectation of the main altar's consummation. For see, the rapturous moment approaches, and earth's best endowment blends with heaven's. The taper fires pant up, the winding brazen spires heave loftier yet the baldachin, the incense gaspings, long kept in, subspire in clouds, the organ blatant holds his breath and grovels latent, as if God's hushing finger grazed him, like Behemoth when he praised him. At the silver bell's shrill tinkling, quick cold drops of terror sprinkling on the sudden pavement strewed with faces of the multitude. Earth breaks up. Time drops away. In flows heaven, with its new day of endless life, when he who trod, very man and very God, this earth in weakness, shame, and pain, dying the death whose signs remain up yonder on the accursed tree, shall come again, no more to be of captivity the thrall, but the one God, all in all, King of kings, Lord of lords, as his servant John received the words, I died, and live for evermore. 11. Yet I was left outside the door. Why sit I here on the threshold stone, left till he return, alone save for the garment's extreme fold, abandoned still to bless my hold? My reason to my doubt replied, as if a book were opened wide, and at a certain page I traced every record undefaced, added by successive years, the harvestings of truth's stray ears singly gleaned, and in one sheaf bound together for belief. Yes, I said, that he will go and sit with these in turn I know. Their faith's heart beats, though her head swims too giddily to guide her limbs, disabled by their palsy stroke from propping mine. Though Rome's gross yoke drops off, no more to be endured, her teaching is not so obscured by errors and perversities that no truth shines athwart the lies. And he whose eye detects a spark even where, to man's, the whole seems dark, may well see flame where each beholder acknowledges the embers smolder. But I, a mere man, fear to quit the clue God gave me as most fit to guide my footsteps through life's maze, because himself discerns all ways open to reach him. I, a man, able to mark where faith began to swerve aside, till from its summit judgment drops her damning plummet, pronouncing such a fatal space departed from the founder's base. He will not bid me enter too, but rather sit, as now I do, awaiting his return outside. 'Twas thus my reason straight replied, and joyously I turned, and pressed the garment's skirt upon my breast, until, afresh its light suffusing me, my heart cried, What has been abusing me that I should wait here lonely and coldly, instead of rising, entering boldly, bearing truth's face, and letting drift her veils of lies as they choose to shift? Do these men praise him? I will raise my voice up to their point of praise. I see the error, but above the scope of error see the love. Oh, love of those first Christian days, fanned so soon into a blaze from the spark preserved by the trampled sect, that the antique sovereign intellect which then sat ruling in the world, like a change in dreams, was hurled from the throne he reigned upon. You looked up, and he was gone. Gone his glory of the pen. Love, with Greece and Rome in ken, bade her scribes abhor the trick of poetry and rhetoric, and exult with hearts set free in blessed imbecility, scrawled perchance on some torn sheet, leaving Sallust incomplete, gone his pride of sculptor, painter. Love, while able to acquaint her, while the thousand statues yet fresh from chisel, pictures wet from brush she saw on every side, chose rather with an infant's pride to frame those portents which impart such unction to true Christian art. Gone music, too. The air was stirred by happy wings. Terpander's bird that, when the cold came, fled away, would tarry not the wintry day, as more enduring sculpture must, till filthy saints rebuked the gust with which they chanced to get a sight of some dear naked Aphrodite they glanced a thought above the toes of, by breaking zealously her nose off. Love, surely, from that music's lingering, might have filched her organ-fingering, nor chosen rather to set prayings to hog-grunts, praises to horse-neighings. Love was the startling thing, the new. Love was the all-sufficient, too. And seeing that, you see the rest. As a babe can find its mother's breast as well in darkness as in light, love shut our eyes, and all seemed right. True, the world's eyes are open now. Less need for me to disallow some few that keep love's zone unbuckled, peevish as ever to be suckled, lulled by the same old baby prattle with intermixture of the rattle, when she would have them creep, stand steady upon their feet, or walk already, not to speak of trying to climb. I will be wise another time, and not desire a wall between us when next I see a church roof cover so many species of one genus, all with foreheads bearing lover written above the earnest eyes of them, all with breasts that beat for beauty, whether sublimed, to the surprise of them, in noble daring, steadfast duty, the heroic in passion or in action, or lowered for sense's satisfaction to the mere outside of human creatures, mere perfect form and faultless features. What, with all Rome here, whence to levy such contributions to their appetite, with women and men in a gorgeous bevy, they take as it were a padlock, clap it tight on their southern eyes, restrained from feeding on the glories of their ancient reading, on the beauties of their modern singing, on the wonders of the builders' bringing, on the majesties of art around them. And all these loves, late struggling incessant, when faith has at last united and bound them, they offer up to God for a present? Why, I will, on the whole, be rather proud of it, and, only taking the act in reference to the other recipients who might have allowed it, I will rejoice that God had the preference. 12. So I summed up my new resolves. Too much love there can never be. And where the intellect devolves its function on love exclusively, I, the man who possesses both, will accept the provision, nothing loath, will feast my love, then depart elsewhere that my intellect may find its share. And ponder, O soul, the while thou departest, and see them applaud the great heart of the artist, who, examining the capabilities of the block of marble he has to fashion into a type of thought or passion, not always, using obvious facilities, shapes it, as any artist can, into a perfect symmetrical man, complete from head to foot of the life size, such as old Adam stood in his wife's eyes, but now and then bravely aspires to consummate a colossus by no means so easy to come at, and uses the whole of his block for the bust, leaving the mind of the public to finish it, since cut it ruefully short he must. On the face alone he expends his devotion. He rather would mar than resolve to diminish it, saying, "Applaud me for this grand notion of what a face may be. As for completing it in breast and body and limbs, do that you." All hail! I fancy how, happily meeting it, a trunk and legs would perfect the statue, could man carve so as to answer volition. And how much nobler than petty cavils were a hope to find, in my spirit travels, some artist of another ambition, who, having a block to carve, no bigger, has spent his power on the opposite quest, and believed to begin at the feet was best. For so may I see, ere I die, the whole figure. 13. No sooner said than out in the night, my heart lighter and more light, and still, as before, I was walking swift, with my senses settling fast and steadying, but my body caught up in the whirl and drift of the vesper's amplitude, still eddying on just before me, still to be followed, as it carried me after with its motion. What shall I say? As a path were hollowed, and a man went weltering through the ocean, sucked along in the flying wake of the luminous water-snake. 14. Alone. I am left alone once more, save for the garment's extreme fold abandoned still to bless my hold. Alone, beside the entrance door of a sort of temple, perhaps a college, like nothing I ever saw before at home in England, to my knowledge. The tall, old, quaint, irregular town. It may be, though which I can't affirm, any of the famous middle-aged towns of Germany. And this flight of stairs where I sit down, is it Halle, Weimar, Kassel, Frankfurt, or Göttingen I have to thank for't? It may be Göttingen, most likely. Through the open door I catch obliquely glimpses of a lecture hall. And not a bad assembly neither, ranged decent and symmetrical on benches, waiting much to see there. Which, holding still by the vesture's hem, I also resolve to see with them, cautious this time how I suffer to slip the chance of joining in fellowship with any that call themselves his friends. As these folk do, I have a notion. But hist! A buzzing and a motion. All settle themselves, the while ascends by the creaking rail to the lecture desk, step by step, deliberate because of his cranium's overfreight, 3 parts sublime to 1 grotesque, if I have proved an accurate guesser, the hawk-nosed, high-cheek-boned professor. I felt at once as if there ran a shoot of love from my heart to the man, that sallow, virgin-minded, studious martyr to mild enthusiasm, as he uttered a kind of cough preludious that woke my sympathetic spasm, besides some spitting that made me sorry, and stood, surveying his auditory with a wan, pure look, well-nigh celestial. Those blue eyes had survived so much, while under the foot they could not smutch lay all the fleshly and the bestial. Over he bowed, and arranged his notes till the auditory's clearing of throats was done with, died into a silence. And when each glance was upward sent, each bearded mouth composed intent, and a pin might be heard drop 1/2 a mile hence, he pushed back higher his spectacles, let the eyes stream out like lamps from cells, and giving his head of hair, a hake of undressed toe for colour and quantity, one rapid and impatient shake, as our own young England adjusts a jaunty tie when about to impart, on mature digestion, some thrilling view of the surplus question. The professor's grave voice, sweet though hoarse, broke into his Christmas Eve discourse. 15. And he began it by observing how reason dictated that men should rectify the natural swerving by a reversion, now and then, to the wellheads of knowledge, few and far away, whence rolling grew the life-stream wide whereat we drink, commingled, as we needs must think, with waters alien to the source, to do which aimed this eve's discourse. Since where could be a fitter time for tracing backward to its prime this Christianity, this lake, this reservoir whereat we slake from one or other bank our thirst? So he proposed inquiring first into the various sources whence this myth of Christ is derivable, demanding from the evidence, since plainly no such life was livable, how these phenomena should class. Whether 'twere best opine Christ was, or never was at all, or whether he was and was not, both together. It matters little for the name, so the idea be left the same. Only, for practical purpose' sake, 'twas obviously as well to take the popular story, understanding how the ineptitude of the time, and the penman's prejudice, expanding fact into fable fit for the clime, had, by slow and sure degrees, translated it into this myth, this individuum, which, when reason had strained and abated it of foreign matter, left for residuum a man. A right true man, however, whose work was worthy a man's endeavour, work that gave warrant almost sufficient to his disciples for rather believing he was just omnipotent and omniscient, as it gives to us, for as frankly receiving his word, their tradition, which, though it meant something entirely different from all that those who only heard it, in their simplicity thought and averred it, had yet a meaning quite as respectable. For, among other doctrines delectable, was he not surely the first to insist on the natural sovereignty of our race? Here the lecturer came to a pausing place, and while his cough, like a drouthy piston, tried to dislodge the husk that grew to him, I seized the occasion of bidding adieu to him, the vesture still within my hand. 16. I could interpret its command. This time he would not bid me enter the exhausted air-bell of the critic. Truth's atmosphere may grow mephitic when Papist struggles with dissenter, impregnating its pristine clarity, one by his daily fare's vulgarity, its gust of broken meat and garlic, one by his soul's too much presuming to turn the frankincense's fuming, and vapours of the candle starlike into the cloud her wings she buoys on. Each that thus sets the pure air seething may poison it for healthy breathing, but the critic leaves no air to poison, pumps out with ruthless ingenuity atom by atom, and leaves you vacuity. Thus much of Christ does he reject, and what retain? His intellect? What is it I must reverence duly? Poor intellect for worship, truly, which tells me simply what was told, if mere morality, bereft of the God in Christ, be all that's left, elsewhere by voices manifold, with this advantage, that the stater made no wise the important stumble of adding he, the sage and humble, was also one with the Creator. You urge Christ's followers' simplicity, but how does shifting blame evade it? Have wisdom's words no more felicity? The stumbling block his speech, who laid it? How comes it that, for one found able to sift the truth of it from fable, millions believe it to the letter? Christ's goodness, then, does that fare better? Strange goodness, which upon the score of being goodness, the mere due of man to fellow man, much more to God, should take another view of its possessor's privilege and bid him rule his race. You pledge your fealty to such rule. What? All from heavenly John and Attic Paul, and that brave weather-battered Peter whose stout faith only stood completer for buffets, sinning to be pardoned, as, more his hands hauled nets, they hardened. All, down to you, the man of men professing here at Göttingen, compose Christ's flock. They, you, and I are sheep of a good man. And why? The goodness, how did he acquire it? Was it self-gained? Did God inspire it? Choose which. Then tell me, on what ground should its possessor dare propound his claim to rise o'er us an inch? Were goodness all some man's invention, who arbitrarily made mention what we should follow, and whence flinch, what qualities might take the style of right and wrong, and had such guessing met with as general acquiescing as graced the alphabet erewhile, when A got leave an ox to be, no camel, quoth the Jews, like G, for thus inventing thing and title, worship were that man's fit requital. But if the common conscience must be ultimately judge, adjust its apt name to each quality already known, I would decree worship for such mere demonstration and simple work of nomenclature, only the day I praised, not nature, but Harvey for the circulation. I would praise such a Christ, with pride and joy that he, as none beside, had taught us how to keep the mind God gave him, as God gave his kind, freer than they from fleshly taint. I would call such a Christ our saint, as I declare our poet him whose insight makes all others dim. 1,000 poets pried at life, and only one amid the strife rose to be Shakespeare. Each shall take his crown, I'd say, for the world's sake, though some objected, had we seen the heart and head of each, what screen was broken there to give them light, while in ourselves it shuts the sight, we should no more admire, perchance, that these found truth out at a glance, than marvel how the bat discerns some pitch-dark cavern's 50 turns, led by a finer tact, a gift he boasts, which other birds must shift without and grope as best they can. No, freely would I praise the man, nor one whit more, if he contended that gift of his from God descended. Ah, friend, what gift of man's does not? No nearer something, by a jot, rise an infinity of nothings than one. Take Euclid for your teacher. Distinguish kinds. Do crownings, clothings, make that creator which was creature? Multiply gifts upon man's head, and what, when all's done, shall be said, but, the more gifted he, I ween, that one's made Christ, this other Pilate, and this might be all that has been. So what is there to frown or smile at? What is left for us, save, in growth of soul, to rise up far past both, from the gift looking to the giver, and from the cistern to the river, and from the finite to infinity, and from man's dust to God's divinity? 17. Take all in a word. The truth in God's breast lies trace for trace upon curs impressed. Though he is so bright and we so dim, we are made in his image to witness him. And were no eye in us to tell, instructed by no inner sense, the light of heaven from the dark of hell, that light would want its evidence. Though justice, good, and truth were still divine, if, by some demon's will, hatred and wrong had been proclaimed law through the world and right misnamed, no mere exposition of morality, made or in part or in totality, should win you to give it worship, therefore. And, if no better proof you will care for, whom do you count the worst man upon earth? Be sure he knows in his conscience more of what right is than arrives at birth in the best man's acts that we bow before. This last knows better. True, but my fact is, 'tis one thing to know and another to practice. And thence I conclude that the real God function is to furnish a motive and injunction for practicing what we know already. And such an injunction and such a motive as the God in Christ do you wave, and, heady, high-minded, hang your tablet votive outside the fane on a finger-post. Morality to the uttermost supreme in Christ, as we all confess, why need we prove would avail no jot to make him God, if God he were not? What is the point where himself lays stress? Does the precept run, believe in good, in justice, truth, now understood for the first time? Or, believe in me, who lived and died, yet essentially am Lord of life? Whoever can take the same to his heart, and for mere love's sake conceive of the love, that man obtains a new truth. No conviction gains of an old one only, made intense by a fresh appeal to his faded sense. 18. Can it be that he stays inside? Is the vesture left me to commune with? Could my soul find aught to sing in tune with even at this lecture if she tried? Oh, let me at lowest sympathize with the lurking drop of blood that lies in the desiccated brain's white roots, without throb for Christ's attributes, as the lecturer makes his special boast. If love's dead there, it has left a ghost. Admire we how from heart to brain, though to say so strike the doctors dumb, one instinct rises and falls again, restoring the equilibrium. And how when the critic had done his best, and the pearl of price, at reason's test, lay dust and ashes levigable on the professor's lecture table, when we looked for the inference and monition that our faith, reduced to such condition, be swept forthwith to its natural dust-hole, he bids us, when we least expect it, take back our faith, if it be not just whole, yet a pearl indeed, as his tests affect it, which fact pays damage done rewardingly, so prize we our dust and ashes accordingly. Go home and venerate the myth I thus have experimented with. This man, continue to adore him rather than all who went before him, and all who ever followed after. Surely for this I may praise you, my brother. Will you take the praise in tears or laughter? That's one point gained. Can I compass another? Unlearned love was safe from spurning. Can't we respect your loveless learning? Let us at least give learning honor. What laurels had we showered upon her, girding her loins up to perturb our theory of the middle verb? Or Turk-like, brandishing a scimitar or anapasts in comic trimeter, or curing the halt and maimed Echetides, while we lounged on at our indebted ease, instead of which a tricksy demon sets her at Titus or Philemon. When ignorance wags his ears of leather and hates God's word, 'tis altogether, nor leaves he his congenial thistles to go and browse on Paul's epistles. And you, the audience, who might ravage the world wide, enviably savage, nor heed the cry of the retriever more than Herr Heine before his fever. I do not tell a lie so errant as say my passion's wings are furled up, and without plainest heavenly warrant I were ready and glad to give the world up. But still, when you rub brow meticulous and ponder the profit of turning holy, if not for God's, for your own sake solely, God forbid I should find you ridiculous. Deduce from this lecture all that eases you. Nay, call yourself, if the calling pleases you, Christians. Abhor the deists' pravity. Go on. You shall no more move my gravity than, when I see boys ride a cock-horse, I find it in my heart to embarrass them by hinting that their stick's a mock-horse, and they really carry what they say carries them. 19. So sat I, talking with my mind. I did not long to leave the door and find a new church, as before, but rather was quiet, and inclined to prolong and enjoy the gentle resting from further tracking and trying and testing. This tolerance is a genial mood, said I, and a little pause ensued. One trims the bark twixt shoal and shelf, and sees, each side, the good effects of it, a value for religion's self, a carelessness about the sects of it. Let me enjoy my own conviction, not watch my neighbour's faith with fretfulness, still sighing there some dereliction of truth, perversity, forgetfulness. Better a mild indifferentism, teaching that both our faiths, though duller his shine through a dull spirit's prism, originally had one colour. Better pursue a pilgrimage through ancient and through modern times to many peoples, various climes, where I may see saint, savage, sage, fuse their respective creeds in one before the General Father's throne. 20. 'Twas the horrible storm began afresh. The black night caught me in his mesh, whirled me up and flung me prone. I was left on the college step alone. I looked, and far there, ever fleeting, far, far away, the receding gesture and looming of the lessening vesture swept forward from my stupid hand, while I watched my foolish heart expand in the lazy glow of benevolence o'er the various modes of man's belief. I sprang up with fear's vehemence. Needs must there be one way, our chief best way of worship. Let me strive to find it, and when found, contrive my fellows also take their share. This constitutes my earthly care. God's is above it, and distinct. For I, a man, with men am linked, but not a brute with brutes. No gain that I experience must remain unshared, but should my best endeavour to share it fail, subsisteth ever God's care above. And I exult that God, by God's own ways occult doth, I will believe, bring back all wanderers to a single track. Meantime, I can but testify God's care for me. No more can I. It is but for myself I know. The world rolls witnessing around me only to leave me as it found me. Men cry there, but my ear is slow. There races flourish or decay. What boots it, while yon lucid way loaded with stars divides the vault? But soon my soul repairs its fault when, sharpening sense's hebetude, she turns on my own life. So viewed, no mere mote's breadth, but teems immense with witnessings of providence. And woe to me if, when I look upon that record, the sole book unsealed to me, I take no heed of any warning that I read. Have I been sure, this Christmas Eve, God's own hand did the rainbow weave, whereby the truth from heaven slid into my soul? I cannot bid the world admit he stooped to heal my soul, as if in a thunder peal where one heard noise and one saw flame, I only knew he named my name. But what is the world to me, for sorrow or joy in its censure, when tomorrow it drops the remark, with just turned head then, on again, that man is dead? Yes, but for me, my name called, drawn as a conscript's lot from the lap's black yawn he has dipped into on a battle dawn, bid out of life by a nod, a glance, stumbling, mute-mazed at nature's chance, with a rapid finger circled round, fixed to the first poor inch of ground to fight from where his foot was found, whose ear but a minute since lay free to the wide camp's buzz and gossipry, summoned a solitary man to end his life where his life began, from the safe glad rear to the dreadful van. Soul of mine, hadst thou caught and held by the hem of the vesture. 21. And I caught at the flying robe, and unrepelled was lapped again in its folds full fraught with warmth and wonder and delight, God's mercy being infinite. For scarce had the words escaped my tongue when, at a passionate bound, I sprung out of the wandering world of rain into the little chapel again. How else was I found there, bolt upright on my bench as if I had never left it? Never flung out on the common at night, nor met the storm and wedge-like cleft it, seen the rare show of Peter's successor, or the laboratory of the professor. For the vision, that was true, I wist, true as that heaven and earth exist. There sat my friend, the yellow and tall, with his neck and its wen in the selfsame place. Yet my nearest neighbour's cheek showed gall. She had slid away a contemptuous space, and the old fat woman, late so placable, eyed me with symptoms hardly mistakable of her milk of kindness turning rancid. In short, a spectator might have fancied that I had nodded, betrayed by slumber, yet kept my scat, a warning ghastly, through the heads of the sermon, 9 in number, and woke up now at the 10th and lastly. But again, could such disgrace have happened? Each friend at my elbow had surely nudged it. And as for the sermon, where did my nap end? Unless I heard it, could I have judged it? Could I report, as I do at the close, first, the preacher speaks through his nose. Second, his gesture is too emphatic. Thirdly, to waive what's pedagogic, the subject matter itself lacks logic. Fourthly, the English is ungrammatic. Great news! The preacher has found no Pascal, whom, if I pleased, I might to the task call of making square to a finite eye the circle of infinity, and find so all but just succeeding. Great news! The sermon proves no reading where bee-like in the flowers I bury me, like Taylor's the immortal Jeremy. And now that I know the very worst of him, what was it I thought to obtain at first of him? Ha! Is God mocked, as he asks? Shall I take on me to change his tasks, and dare, dispatched to a river head for a simple draught of the element, neglect the thing for which he's sent, and return with another thing instead, saying, because the water found welling up from the underground is mingled with the taints of earth, while thou, I know, dost laugh at dearth, and couldst, at wink or word, convulse the world with the leap of a river pulse. Therefore I turned from the oozings muddy, and bring thee a chalice I found instead. See the brave veins in the breccia ruddy. One would suppose that the marble bled. What matters the water? A hope I have nursed, the waterless cup will quench my thirst. Better have knelt at the poorest stream that trickles in pain from the straightest rift. For the less or the more is all God's gift, who blocks up or breaks wide the granite seam. And here, is there water or not to drink? I then, in ignorance and weakness, taking God's help, have attained to think my heart does best to receive in weakness that mode of worship, as most to his mind, where earthly aids being cast behind, his all in all appears serene, with the thinnest human veil between, letting the mystic lamps, the 7, the many motions of his spirit, pass as they list to earth from heaven. For the preacher's merit or demerit, it were to be wished the flaws were fewer in the earthen vessel, holding treasure which lies as safe in a golden ewer. But the main thing is, does it hold good measure? Heaven soon sets right all other matters. Ask else these ruins of humanity, this flesh worn out to rags and tatters, this soul at struggle with insanity, who thence take comfort, can I doubt, which an empire gained were a loss without? May it be mine. And let us hope that no worse blessing befall the Pope, turned sick at last of today's buffoonery, of posturings and petticoatings beside his Bourbon bullies' gloatings in the bloody orgies of drunk poltroonery. Nor may the professor forego its peace at Gottingen presently, when, in the dusk of his life, if his cough, as I fear, should increase, prophesied of by that horrible husk, when thicker and thicker the darkness fills the world through his misty spectacles, and he gropes for something more substantial than a fable, myth, or personification, may Christ do for him what no mere man shall, and stand confessed as the God of salvation. Meantime, in the still recurring fear lest myself, at unawares, be found while attacking the choice of my neighbours round, with none of my own made, I choose here. The giving out of the hymn reclaims me. I have done. And if any blames me, thinking that merely to touch in brevity the topics I dwell on were unlawful, or, worse, that I trench with undue levity on the bounds of the holy and the awful, I praise the heart and pity the head of him, and refer myself to thee instead of him, who head and heart alike discernest, looking below light speech we utter, when frothy spume and frequent sputter prove that the soul's depths boil in earnest. May truth shine out, stand ever before us. I put up pencil and join chorus to Hepzibah without further apology, the last 5 verses of the 3rd section of the 17th hymn of Whitfield's collection, to conclude with the doxology. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Christmas Song by Teresa Brayton. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. O Lord, as you lay so soft and white, a babe in a manger stall, with the big star flashing across the night, did you know and pity us all? Did the wee hands close as the rosebud curled, with the call of their mission ache, to be out and saving a weary world for your merciful Father's sake? Did you hear the cries of the groping blind, the woe of the leper's prayer, the surging sorrow of all mankind, as you lay by your mother there? Beyond the shepherd's low bending down, the long, long road did you see that led from peaceful Bethlehem town to the summit of Calvary? The world grown weary of wasting strife had called for the Christ to rise, for sin had poisoned the springs of life, and only the dead were wise. But wrapped in a dream of scornful pride, too high were its eyes to see a child foredoomed to be crucified on a peasant mother's knee. But while the heavens with glad acclaim sang out the tale of your birth, a mystic echo of comfort came to the desolate souls of earth. For the thrill of a slowly turning tide was felt in that gray daybreak, as if God the Father had sanctified all sorrow for one man's sake. O child of the promise, Lord of love, O Master of all the earth, while the angels are singing their songs above, we bring our gifts to your birth. Just the blind man's cry, and the lame man's pace, and the leper's pitiful call, on these over infinite fields of space, look down, for you know them all. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Dirge by Felicia Dorothea Hemans. Read for LibriVox.org by Lee. Calm on the bosom of thy God, fair spirit, rest thee now, e'en while with ours thy footsteps trod. His seal was on thy brow, dust to its narrow house beneath, soul to its place on high. They that have seen thy look in death no more may fear to die. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Dominus Illuminatio Mea by R.D. Blackmore. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. In the hour of death, after this life swim, when the heart beats low and the eyes grow dim, and pain has exhausted every limb, the lover of the Lord shall trust in Him. When the will has forgotten the lifelong aim, and the mind can only disgrace its fame, and a man is uncertain of his own name, the power of the Lord shall fill this frame. When the last sigh is heaved, and the last tear shed, and the coffin is waiting beside the bed, and the widow and child forsake the dead, the angel of the Lord shall lift this head. For even the purest delight may pall, and the power must fail, and the pride must fall, and the love of the dearest friends grow small, but the glory of the Lord is all in all. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Farewell by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Read for LibriVox.org by Divya. Flow down, cold rivulet, to the sea, thy tribute wave deliver. No more by thee my steps shall be, for ever and for ever. Flow, softly flow, by lawn and lea, a rivulet, then a river. Nowhere by thee my steps shall be, for ever and for ever. But here will sigh thine alder tree, and here thine aspen shiver, and here by thee will hum the bee, for ever and for ever. 1,000 suns will stream on thee, 1,000 moons will quiver, but not by thee my steps shall be, for ever and for ever. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Hallowe'en by John Kendrick Bangs. Read for LibriVox.org by Carrie Adams, your book voice, on the 31st of October, 2021, at Mesa, Arizona. Bring forth the raisins and the nuts. Tonight All Hallows spectre struts along the moonlit way. No time is this for tear or sob, or other woes our joys to rob, but time for Pippin and for Bob, and jack-o'-lantern gay. Come forth, ye lass and trousered kid, from prisoned mischief raise the lid, and lift it good and high. Leave grave old wisdom in the lurch, set folly on a lofty perch, nor fear the awesome rod of birch, when dawn illumes the sky. 'Tis night for revel set apart, to re-illume the darkened heart, and rout the hosts of dole. 'Tis night when goblin, elf, and fay come dancing in their best array, to prank and roister on the way, and ease the troubled soul. The ghosts of all things past parade, emerging from the mist and shade that hid them from our gaze, and full of song and ringing mirth, in one glad moment of rebirth, again they walk the ways of earth, as in the ancient days. The beacon light shines on the hill, the will-o'-wisps the forests fill, with flashes filched from noon, and witches on their broomsticks spry speed here and yonder in the sky, and lift their strident voices high unto the hunter's moon. The air resounds with tuneful notes from myriads of straining throats, all hailing Folly Queen. So join the swelling choral throng, forget your sorrow and your wrong, in one glad hour of joyous song, to honor Hallowe'en. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Holly Tree by Robert Southey. Read for LibriVox.org by Amanda Chandler. O reader, hast thou ever stood to see the holly tree? The eye that contemplates it well perceives its glossy leaves ordered by an intelligence so wise as might confound the atheist's sophistries. Below a circling fence, its leaves are seen wrinkled and keen. No grazing cattle through their prickly round can reach to wound. But as they grow where nothing is to fear, smooth and unarmed the pointless leaves appear. I love to view these things with curious eyes and moralize, and in this wisdom of the holly tree can emblems see wherewith, perchance, to make a pleasant rhyme, one which may profit in the aftertime. Thus, though abroad, perchance, I might appear harsh and austere, to those who on my leisure would intrude, reserved and rude. Gentle at home amid my friends I'd be, like the high leaves upon the holly tree. And should my youth, as youth is apt, I know, some harshness show, all vain asperities I, day by day, would wear away, till the smooth temper of my age should be like the high leaves upon the holly tree. And as, when all the summer trees are seen so bright and green, the holly leaves their fadeless hues display, less bright than they. But when the bare and wintry woods we see, what then so cheerful as the holly tree? So, serious should my youth appear among the thoughtless throng, so would I seem, amid the young and gay, more grave than they, that in my age as cheerful I might be as the green winter of the holly tree. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Hourglass by Ben Jonson. Read for LibriVox.org by Cristina Luiz. Do but consider this small dust here running in the glass, by atoms moved. Could you believe that this the body was of one that loved? And in his mistress's flame, playing like a fly, turned to cinders by her eye? Yes, and in death as life, and blessed to have it expressed, even ashes of lovers find no rest. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
How Happy is the Little Stone by Emily Dickinson. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. How happy is the little stone that rambles in the road alone, and doesn't care about careers and exigencies, never fears, whose coat of elemental brown a passing universe put on, and independent as the sun, associates or glows alone, fulfilling absolute decree in casual simplicity. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Hymn on the Morning of Christ's Nativity by John Milton. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. It was the winter wild, while the heaven-born child, all meanly wrapped in the rude manger lies. Nature, in awe to him, had doffed her gaudy trim, with her great Master so to sympathize. It was no season then for her to wanton with the sun, her lusty paramour. Only with speeches fair she woos the gentle air, to hide her guilty front with innocent snow, and on her naked shame pollute with sinful blame the saintly veil of maiden white to throw, confounded that her Maker's eyes should look so near upon her foul deformities. But he her fears to cease sent down the meek-eyed peace. She, crowned with olive green, came softly sliding down through the turning sphere, his ready harbinger, with turtle wing, the amorous clouds dividing. And waving wide her myrtle wand, she strikes a universal peace through sea and land. No war or battle's sound was heard the world around. The idle spear and shield were high uphung. The hooked chariot stood, unstained with hostile blood. The trumpet spake not to the armed throng, and kings sat still with awful eye, as if they surely knew their sovereign Lord was by. But peaceful was the night, wherein the Prince of Light his reign of peace upon the earth began. The winds with wonder whist, smoothly the waters kissed, whispering new joys to the mild ocean, who now hath quite forgot to rave, while birds of calm sit brooding on the charmed wave. The stars with deep amaze stand fixed in steadfast gaze, bending one way their precious influence, and will not take their flight, for all the morning light, or Lucifer that often warned them thence, but in their glimmering orbs did glow, until their Lord himself bespake, and bid them go. And though the shady gloom had given day her room, the sun himself withheld his wonted speed, and hid his head for shame, as his inferior flame the new enlightened world no more should need. He saw a greater sun appear, than his bright throne or burning axletree could bear. The shepherds on the lawn, or ere the point of dawn, sat simply chatting in a rustic row. Full little thought they then that the mighty Pan was kindly come to live with them below. Perhaps their loves, or else their sheep, was all that did their silly thoughts so busy keep. When such music sweet their hearts and ears did greet, as never was by mortal finger strook, divinely warbled voice, answering the stringed noise, as all their souls in blissful rapture took the air such pleasure loath to lose, with thousand echoes still prolongs each heavenly close. Nature that heard such sound beneath the hollow round of Cynthia's seat, the airy region thrilling, now was almost won, to think her part was done, and that her reign had there its last fulfilling. She knew such harmony alone could hold all heaven and earth in happier union. At last surrounds their sight a globe of circular light, that with long beams the shamefaced night arrayed. The helmed cherubim and sworded seraphim are seen in glittering ranks with wings displayed, harping in loud and solemn choir, with unexpressive notes to heaven's new-born heir. Such music, as 'tis said, before was never made, but when of old the sons of morning sung, while the Creator great his constellations set, and the well-balanced world on hinges hung, and cast the dark foundations deep, and bid the weltering waves their oozy channel keep. Ring out, ye crystal spheres, once bless our human ears, if ye have power to touch our senses so, and let your silver chime move in melodious time, and let the bass of heaven's deep organ blow, and with your ninefold harmony make up full consort to the angel-like symphony. So if such holy song enwrap our fancy long, time will run back and fetch the age of gold, and speckled vanity will sicken soon and die, and leprous sin will melt from earthly mold, and hell itself will pass away, and leave her dolorous mansions to the peering day. Yea, truth and justice then will down return to men, the enamelled hours of the rainbow wearing, and mercy set between. Throned in celestial sheen, with radiant feet, the tissued clouds down steering, and heaven, as at some festival, will open wide the gates of her high palace hall. But wisest fate says no, this must not yet be so. The babe lies yet in smiling infancy, that on the bitter cross must redeem our loss. So both himself and us to glorify, yet first to those ye chained in sleep, the wakeful trump of doom must thunder through the deep. With such a horrid clang as on Mount Sinai rang, while the red fire and the smouldering clouds outbreak, the aged earth aghast with terror of that blast, shall from the surface to the centre shake, when at the world's last session the dreadful Judge in middle air shall spread his throne, And then at last our bliss full and perfect is, but now begins. For from this happy day the old dragon underground, in straiter limits bound, not half so far casts his usurped sway, and wrath to see his kingdom fail, swinges the scaly horror of his foul detail. The oracles are dumb, no voice or hideous hum runs through the arched roof in words deceiving. Apollo from his shrine can no more divine, with hollow shriek the steep Adelphus leaving. No nightly trance or breathed spell inspires the pale-eyed priest from the prophetic cell. The lonely mountains o'er, and the resounding shore, a voice of weeping heard, and loud lament. From haunted spring and dale, edged with poplar pale, the parting genius is with sighing sent. With flower inwoven tresses torn, the nymphs in twilight shade of tangled thickets mourn. In consecrated earth, and on the holy hearth, the Lars and Lemures moan with midnight plaint. In urns and altars round, a drear and dying sound affrights the flamens at their service quaint, and the chill marble seems to sweat while each peculiar power foregoes his wonted seat. Peor and Balaam forsake their temples dim, with that twice battered god of Palestine, and mooned Ashtaroth, heaven's queen and mother both, now sits not girt with tapers' holy shine. The Libyc Hammon shrinks his horn, in vain the Tyrian maids the wounded Thammuz mourn. And sullen Moloch fled, hath left in shadows dread his burning idol all of blackest hue. In vain with cymbals ring they call the grisly king. In dismal dance about the furnace blue, the brutish gods of Nihilus fast, Isis and Orus, and the dog Anubis hast. Nor is Osiris seen, in Memphine grove or green, trampling the unshowered grass with lowings loud, nor can he be at rest within his sacred chest. Naught but profoundest hell can be his shroud. In vain with timbreled anthems dark, the sable-stoled sorcerers bear his worshipped ark. He feels from Judah's land the dreaded infant's hand. The rays of Bethlehem blind his dusky eye, nor all the gods beside longer dare abide, not Typhon huge ending in snaky twine. Our babe, to show his godhead true, can in his swaddling bands control the damned crew. So when the sun in bed, curtained with cloudy red, pillows his chin upon an orient wave, the flocking shadows pale troop to the infernal jail. Each fettered ghost slips to his several grave, and the yellow-skirted fays fly after the night steeds, leaving their moon-loved maze. But see, the Virgin blest hath laid her babe to rest. Time is our tedious song should here have ending. Heaven's youngest teamed star hath fixed her polished car, her sleeping Lord with handmaid lamp attending, and all about the courtly stable bright harnessed angels sit in order serviceable. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Indian Sunset by Pamela Wyndham. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. The sun hangs low in a fiery haze, barring the heavens with gold. A crimson sphere is the monarch of days, and the moon leans sharp and cold. The moon leans sharp and cold, and it seems, as the great stars spear the night, a spirit's abroad on the breathing earth, a spirit that owes an enchanted birth to the union of darkness and light. It moves in the green of the standing corn, and throbs in the falling dusk. It breathes in the shadow, and with it is born the odour of rose and musk. The odour of sandal and musk and balm, and from prickly and pulpous thorns, the clamouring crickets, hushed through the noon, fill the quivering air, while a lavender moon clips the deepening blue in her horns. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The King of Love My Shepherd Is, by Henry Williams Baker. Read for LibriVox.org by Paula Messina. The King of Love my shepherd is, whose goodness faileth never. I nothing lack if I am his, and he is mine forever. Where streams of living water flow, my ransomed soul he leadeth, and where the verdant pastures grow, with food celestial feedeth. Perverse and foolish, oft I strayed, but yet in love he sought me, and on his shoulder gently laid, and home rejoicing brought me. In death's dark vale I fear no ill, with thee, dear Lord, beside me, thy rod and staff my comfort still, thy cross before to guide me. Thou spreadest a table in my sight, thy unction grace bestoweth, and oh, what transport of delight from thy pure chalice floweth. And so through all the length of days, thy goodness faileth never. Good Shepherd, may I sing thy praise within thy house forever. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Last Night by George Darley. Read for LibriVox.org by Sherr. I sat with one I love last night. She sang to me an olden strain. In former times it woke delight. Last night, but pain. Last night we saw the stars arise, but clouds soon dimmed the ether blue. And when we sought each other's eyes, tears dimmed them too. We paced along our favourite walk, but paced in silence, broken-hearted. Of old, we used to smile and talk. Last night, we parted. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Love hath his throne within my lady's eyes, by Dante Alighieri. Read for LibriVox.org by Cavaet. Love hath his throne within my lady's eyes, whence all she looks on wears his gracious mien. All turn to gaze when she abroad is seen, and whom she greets from him his colour flies. With downward gaze he stands abashed and sighs, remembering all his own unworthy blames. Anger and pride before her fly. Ye dames, lend me your aid her matchless worth to prize. All gentleness, all thought serene and meek, grow in the heart of him that hears her voice. To see her once is ever to rejoice. Her look, when a faint smile is on her cheek, nor tongue can tell, nor memory hold in view. So winning gracious is the sight and new. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Miss Lou by Walter de la Mare. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. When thin-strewn memory I look through, I see most clearly poor Miss Lou, her tabby cat, her cage of birds, her nose, her hair, her muffled words, and how she'd open her green eyes, as if in some immense surprise, whenever, as we sat at tea, she made some small remark to me. It's always drowsy summer when, from out the past, she comes again. The westering sunshine, in a pool, floats in her parlour, still and cool, while the slim bird its lean wires shakes, as into piercing song it breaks, till Peter's pale green eyes ajar dream wake, wake dream, in one brief bar, and I am sitting, dull and shy, and she with gaze of vacancy, and large hands folded on the tray, musing the afternoon away, her satin bosom heaving slow with sighs that softly ebb and flow, and her plain face in such dismay, it seems unkind to look her way, until all cheerful back will come her cheerful gleaming spirit home, and one would think that poor Miss Lou asked nothing else if she had you. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
November by C. L. Cleveland. Read for LibriVox.org by Ike Sherr. When thistle blows do lightly float about the pasture height, and shrills the hawk a parting note, and creeps the frost at night, then hilly-ho, though singing so, and whistle as I may, there comes again the old heart-pain through all the livelong day. In high wind creaks the leafless tree, and nods the fading fern. The knolls are dun as snow clouds be, and cold the sun does burn. Then ho, hollo, though calling so, I cannot keep it down. The tears arise unto my eyes, and thoughts are chill and brown. Far in the cedar's dusky stalls, where the sere ground vine weaves, the partridge drums funeral rolls above the fallen leaves. And hip, hip, ho, though cheering so, it stills no whit the pain. For drip, 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 from bare branch tip, I hear the year's last rain. So drive the cold cows from the hill, and call the wet sheep in, and let the stamping clatter fill the barn with warming din. And ho, folk, ho! Though it be so that we no more may roam, we still will find a cheerful mind around the fire at home. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Nox Nivosa by Walter Leslie Wilmshurst. Read for LibriVox.org by Amanda Chandler. Snowflakes down floating from the void upon my face, spilth of the silent alchemy employed in deeps of space where viewless, everlasting fingers ply the power whose secret is the mystery that doth my world encase. Power that with equal ease outshakes yon architrave of massy stars in heaven, and these frail flakes earth's floor that pave, swings the flamed orbs with infinite time for dower, and strews these velvet jewels not an hour of sunshine that will brave. Yet of whose clustered crystals none but speaks the act of the hand that steers each ceaseless wheeling sun, and to whose tact fire wreath and spangled ice alike respond. Thoughts from the void frozen to flower and frond, divinely all compact. Snowflakes of pureness unalloyed that in dark space are built and spilt from out the teeming void with prodigal grace. Air-quarried temples, though you fall scarce felt, and all your delicate architecture melt to tears upon my face. I, too, am such in crystalled breath in the void planned, and bodied forth to surge of life and death. And as I stand beneath this sacramental spilth of snow, crumbling, you whisper, "Fear thou not to go back to the viewless hand, thence to be molded forth again through time and space, till thy imperishable self attain such strength and grace through endless infinite refinement past, by the eternal alchemist, that at last thou see him face to face. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Lapata. My heart aches, and a drowsy numbness pains my sense as though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains 1 minute past, and leftwards had sunk. 'Tis not through envy of thy happy lot, or being too happy in thine happiness, that thou, light-winged dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of beech and green and shadows numberless, sinks of summer in full-throated ease. Ah, for a draught of vintage that hath been cooled a long age in the deep-delved earth, tasting of flora and the country green, dance, and Provençal song and sunburnt mirth. Oh, for a beaker full of the warm south, full of the true, the blushful hippocrene, with beaded bubbles winking at the brim and purple-stained mouth, that I might drink, and leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest dim. Fade far away, dissolve, and quite forget what thou amongst the leaves hast never known, the weariness, the fever, and the fret. Here, where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few sad last grey hairs, where youth grows pale and spectre-thin and dies, and where but to think is to be full of sorrow and leaden-eyed despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or new love pine at them beyond tomorrow. Away, away, for I will fly to thee, not charioted by Bacchus or his pards, but on the viewless wings of poesy. Though the dull brain perplexes and retards, already with thee tender is the night, and haply the moon queen is on her throne, clustered around by all her starry fays, but here there is no light, save what from heaven is with the breezes blown through verdurous glooms and windy mossing ways. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, nor what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness guess each sweet wherewith the seasonable month endows, the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild, white hawthorn, and the pastoral eglantine, fast-fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid-May's eldest child, coming musgroves full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of flies on a summer's eve. Darkling I listen, and, for many a time, I have been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names and many a mused rhyme, to take into the air my quiet breath. Now, more than ever, it seems rich to die, to cease upon the midnight with no pain. Although art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy, still wouldst thou sing, and I have ears in vain, to thy higher requiem become a sod. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird, no hungry generations tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown, perhaps the self-same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth when, sick for home, she stood in tears amid the alien corn. The same that oft times hath charmed magic casements, opening on the foam of perilous seas and fairy lands forlorn. Forlorn. The very word is like a bell to toll me back from thee to my soul self. Adieu. The fancy cannot cheat so well as she is famed to do, deceiving elf. Adieu, adieu, thy plaintive anthem fades. Past the near meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and now 'tis buried deep in the next valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is the music. Do I wake or sleep? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Owl by Edward Thomas. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston Tharp. Downhill I came, hungry, and yet not starved, cold, yet had heat within me that was proof against the north wind, tired, yet so that rest had seemed the sweetest thing under a roof. Then at the inn I had food, fire, and rest, knowing how hungry, cold, and tired was I. All of the night was quite barred out, except an owl's cry, a most melancholy cry, shaken out long and clear upon the hill, no merry note nor cause of merriment, but one telling me plain what I escaped, and others could not that night, as in I went. And salted was my food, and my repose salted and sobered too by the bird's voice, speaking for all who lay under the stars, soldiers and poor, unable to rejoice. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Passionate Shepherd to His Love by C. Marlowe. Read for LibriVox.org. Come, live with me, and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that hills and valleys, dale and field, and all the craggy mountains yield. There will we sit upon the rocks, and see the shepherds feed their flocks, by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. There will I make thee beds of roses, and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers, and a kirtle, embroidered all with leaves of myrtle, a gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold, a belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come, live with me, and be my love. Thy silver dishes for thy meat, as precious as the gods do eat, shall on an ivory table be, prepared each day for thee and me. The shepherd swains shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Pastoral by William Carlos Williams. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Lapata. When I was younger, it was plain to me I must make something of myself. Older now, I walk back streets admiring the houses of the very poor. Roof out of line with sides, the yards cluttered with old chicken wire, ashes, furniture gone wrong. The fences and outhouses built of barrel staves and parts of boxes, all, if I am fortunate, smeared a bluish green that, properly weathered, pleases me best of all colors. No one will believe this of vast import to the nation. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Psyche by Pamela Wyndham. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. I was a tardy insect once, and moved in heaving throes. Where'er I went, I made a rent, and spoiled my garden rose. But came a voice that said, "Rejoice, arise," and I arose. I passed through many a curious change, all witless of the goal, to which the hand that had command did all my ways control. Now gilt and fair and light as air I fly, a ransomed soul. Now know I well the summer flowers, and why the linnet sings, but best of all my clumsy crawl is changed for painted wings. And shall not death be fuller breath to yet undreamed of things? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Rain in Summer by Pamela Wyndham. Read for LibriVox.org by Newgatenovelist. Sheaved is the yellow corn, the roads are dust. Weeds by the trodden ways are burnt and brown. Now summer's poppy scarlet cloak lies thrown wide over all the land, a sun-dried crust. Surely a thirsty earth abhors each thrust dealt her by sun-spears that have borne her down, and well-nigh withered all her leafy crown, through these last shining days of dew-fed trust. But now the swallows with a restless ease brush the close meadow grass in swerving flight. A late wind creeps among the shadowy trees, and clouds lie massed against an amber light. The skies lean low that were a vast blue plain. Blinding the landscape falls the thick white rain. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Reverie of Poor Susan by William Wordsworth. Read for LibriVox.org by Amazing Space 48. At the corner of Wood Street, when daylight appears, hangs a thrush that sings loud. It has sung for 3 years. Poor Susan has passed by the spot, and has heard in the silence of morning the song of the bird. 'Tis a note of enchantment. What ails her? She sees a mounting, ascending, a vision of trees. Bright volumes of vapour through Lotbury glide, and a river flows on through the vale of Cheapside. Green pastures she views in the midst of the dale, down which she so often has tripped with her pail. And a single small cottage, a nest like a dove's, the one only dwelling on earth that she loves. She looks, and her heart is in heaven, but they fade, the mist and the river, the hill and the shade. The stream will not flow, and the hill will not rise, and the colors have all passed away from her eyes. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Sabbath Morning at Sea by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Read for LibriVox.org by Nathan Lewin. The ship went on with solemn face to meet the darkness on the deep. The solemn ship went onward. I bowed down weary in the place, for parting tears and present sleep had weighed mine eyelids downward. Thick sleep which shut all dreams from me, and kept my inner self apart and quiet from emotion, then brake away and left me free, made conscious of a human heart betwixt the heaven and ocean. The new sight, the new wondrous sight, the waters round me turbulent, the skies impassive o'er me, calm in a moonless, sunless light, half glorified by that intent of holding the day glory. 2 pale thin clouds did stand upon the meeting line of sea and sky, with aspect still and mystic. I think they did foresee the sun, and rested on their prophecy, in quietude majestic. Then flushed to radiance where they stood, like statues by the open tomb of shining saints half risen. The sun, he came up to be viewed, and sky and sea made mighty room to inaugurate the vision. I oft had seen the dawnlight run as red wine through the hills, and break through many a mist's inuring. But here no earth profaned the sun. Heaven and ocean did alone partake the sacrament of morning. Away with thoughts fantastical. I would be humble to my worth, self-guarded as self-doubted. Though here no earthly shadows fall,
I, joying grieving without earth, may desecrate without it. God's Sabbath morning sweeps the waves. I would not praise the pageant high, yet miss the dedication. I, carried towards the sunless graves by force of natural things, should I exult in only nature? And could I bear to sit alone, mid nature's fixed benignities, while my warm pulse was moving? Too dark if thou art, O glittering sun, too strait ye are, capacious seas, to satisfy the loving. It seems a better lot than so, to sit with friends beneath the beech, and call them dear and dearer, or follow children as they go, in pretty pairs, with softened speech, as the church bells ring nearer. Love me, sweet friends, this Sabbath day. The sea sings round me while ye roll, afar the hymn unaltered, and kneel where once I knelt to pray, and bless me deeper in the soul, because the voice has faltered. And though this Sabbath comes to me, without the stolid minister, or chanting congregation, God's Spirit brings communion, He who brooded soft on waters drear, Creator on creation. Himself, I think, shall draw me higher, where keep the saints with harp and song, in endless Sabbath morning, and on that sea commixed with fire, oft drop their eyelids raised too long, to the full Godhead's burning. End of A Sabbath Morning at Sea by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. November 2021, Israel.
The Seed Shop by Muriel Stewart, read for LibraryVox.org by Casey Cassess. Here in a quiet and dusty room they lie, faded as crumbled stone or shifting sand, forlorn as ashes shriveled, scentless, dry, meadows and gardens running through my hand. Dead that shall quicken at the call of spring, sleepers to stir beneath June's magic kiss, though birds pass over unremembering, and no bee seek here roses that were his. In this brown husk a dale of hawthorn dreams, a cedar in this narrow cell is thrust, that will drink deeply of a century's streams, these lilies shall make summer on my dust. Here in their safe and simple house of death, sealed in their shells, a million roses leap. Here I can blow a garden with my breath, and in my hand a forest lies asleep. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Sleeper by Walter de la Mare. Read for LibriVox.org by Bruce Kachuk. As Anne came in one summer's day, she felt that she must creep. So silent was the clear, cool house, it seemed a house of sleep. And sure, when she pushed open the door, wrapped in the stillness there, her mother sat with stooping head, asleep upon a chair. Fast, fast asleep, her two hands laid loose folded on her knee, so that her small unconscious face looked half unreal to be. So calmly lit with sleep's pale light each feature was, so fair. Her forehead, every trouble was smoothed out beneath her hair. But though her mind in dream now moved, still seemed her gaze to rest from out beneath her fast-sealed lids, above her moving breast. On Anne, as quite still she stood, yet slumber lay so deep. Even her hands upon her lap seemed saturate with sleep. And as Anne peeped, a cloud like dread stole over her, and then on stealthy mouse-like feet she trod and tiptoed out again. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Solitude by Sir Henry Parkes. Read for LibriVox.org by Algy Pug. Where the mocking lyrebird calls to its mate among the falls of the mountain streams that play, each adown its tortuous way. When the dewy-fingered even veils the narrowed glimpse of heaven, where the morning re-illumes gullies full of ferny plumes, and the roof of radiance weaves through high-hanging vault of leaves. There, mid giant turpentines, groups of climbing, clustering vines, rocks that stand like sentinels, guarding native citadels, lowly flowering shrubs that grace with their beauty all the place. There I love to wander lonely, with my dog companion only. There indulge unworldly moods in the mountain solitudes, far from all the gilded strife of our boasted social life, contemplating, spirit free, the majestic company, grandly marching through the ages, heroes, martyrs, bards and sages. They who bravely suffered long, by their struggles waxing strong, for the freedom of the mind, for the rights of humankind. Oh, for some awakening cause, where we face eternal laws, where we dare not turn aside, where the souls of men are tried, something of a nobler strife, which consumes the dross of life, to unite to truer aim, to exalt to loftier fame. Leave behind the bats and balls, leave the races in the stalls, leave the cards for ever shuffled, leave the yacht on seas unruffled, leave the haunts of pampered ease, leave your dull festivities. Better far the savage glen, fitter school for earnest men. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Song by Cristina Rossetti. Read for LibriVox.org by Lee. When I am dead, my dearest, sing no sad songs for me. Plant thou no roses at my head, nor shady cypress tree. Be the green grass above me, with showers and dewdrops wet. And if thou wilt remember, and if thou wilt forget, I shall not see the shadows, I shall not feel the rain, I shall not hear the nightingale sing on as if in pain, and dreaming through the twilight that doth not rise nor set, haply I may remember, and haply may forget. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Sonnet 109 by William Shakespeare. Read for LibriVox.org by Winston, Tharp. Oh, never say that I was false of heart, though absence seemed my flame to qualify. As easy might I from myself depart as from my soul, which in thy breast doth lie. That is my home of love. If I have ranged, like him that travels, I return again, just to the time, not with the time exchanged, so that myself bring water for my stain. Never believe, though in my nature reigned all frailties that besiege all kinds of blood, that it could so preposterously be stained to leave for nothing all thy sum of good. For nothing this wide universe I call, save thou, my rose, in it thou art my all. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Spring Longing by Emma Lazarus. This is a LibriVox recording by Rich Deshawn. Spring Longing by Emma Lazarus. Lilac hazes veil the skies, languid sighs breathes the mild caressing air. Pink as coral's branching sprays, orchard ways with the blossomed peach are fair. Sunshine, cordial as a kiss, poureth bliss in this craving soul of mine, and my heart her flower cup lifteth up. Thirsting for the draught divine, swift the liquid golden flame through my frame sets my throbbing veins afire. Bright, alluring dreams arise, brim mine eyes with the tears of strong desire. All familiar scenes anear disappear, homestead, orchard, field and wold. Moorish spires and turrets fair cleave the air, arabesqued on skies of gold. Lo, my spirit this May morn, outward borne over seas, hath taken wing, where the medieval town like a crown wears the garland of the spring. Light and sound and odors sweet fill the street, gypsy girls are selling flowers. Lean hidalgos turn aside, amorous-eyed, 'neath the grim cathedral towers. Oh, to be in Spain today, where the May recks no whit of good or evil. Love and only love breathes she. Oh, to be midst the olive rose of Seville. Or on such a day to glide with the tide of the Berlin lagoon, through the streets that mirror heaven, crystal paven in the warm Venetian noon. At the prow the gondolier may not hear, may not see our furtive kiss, but he lends with cadent strain the refrain to our ripe and silent bliss. Golden shadows, silver light, burnish bright air and water, domes and skies, as in some ambrosial dream on the stream floats our bark in magic wise. Oh, to float day long just so, not to know of the trouble, toil, and fret. This is love, and this is May, yesterday and tomorrow to forget. Whither hast thou fancy-free guided me, wild Bohemian sister dear? All thy gypsy soul is stirred since yon bird warbled that the spring was here. Tempt no more. I may not follow like the swallow gaily on the track of spring. Bounden by an iron fate, I must wait, dream and wonder, yearn and sing. End of Spring Longing. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain.
To Charlotte by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, 1749 to 1832. Read for LibriVox.org. To Charlotte. Midst the noise of merriment and glee, midst full many a sorrow, many a care, Charlotte, I remember, we remember thee, how at evening's hour so fair thou a kindly hand didst reach us, when thou in some happy place, where more fair is nature's face, many a lightly hidden trace of a spirit loved did teach us. Well 'tis that thy worth I rightly knew, that I, in the hour when first we met, while the first impression filled me yet, called thee then a girl both good and true. Reared in silence, calmly knowing naught, on the world we suddenly are thrown. 100,000 billows round us sport, all things charm us, many please alone, many grieve us, and as hour on hour is stealing, to and fro our restless natures sway. First we feel, and then we find each feeling by the changeful world stream borne away. Well I know we oft within us find many a hope and many a smart. Charlotte, who can know our mind? Charlotte, who can know our heart? Ah, 'twould fain be understood, 'twould fain o'erflow in some creature's fellow feelings blest, and with trust in twofold measure know all the grief and joy in nature's breast. Then thine eye is oft around thee cast, but in vain, for all seems closed forever. Thus the fairest part of life is madly passed, free from storm, but resting never.
To thy sorrow thou art to-day repelled by what yesterday obeyed thee. Can that world by thee be worthy held, which so oft betrayed thee? Which, mid all thy pleasures and thy pains, lived in selfish, unconcerned repose? See, the soul its secret cells regains, and the heart makes haste to close. Thus found I thee, and gladly went to meet thee. She's worthy of all love, I cried, and prayed that heaven with purest bliss might greet thee, which in thy friend it richly hath supplied. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To Death by Caroline Southey. Read for LibriVox.org by Lee. Come not in terrors clad to claim an unresisting prey. Come like an evening shadow, Death, so stealthily, so silently, and shut mine eyes and steal my breath. Then willingly, oh willingly, with thee I'll go away. What need to clutch with iron grasp what gentlest touch may take? What need with aspect dark to scare so awfully, so terribly? The weary soul would hardly care, called quietly, called tenderly, from thy dread power to break. 'Tis not as when thou markest out the young, the blessed, the gay, the loved, the loving, they who dream so happily, so hopefully. Then harsh thy kindest call may seem, and shrinkingly, reluctantly, the summoned may obey. But I have drunk enough of life, the cup assigned to me, dashed with a little sweet at best, so scantily, to know full well that all the rest, more bitterly, drugged to the last will be. And I may live to pain some heart that kindly cares for me, to pain, but not to bless, O Death. Come quietly, come lovingly, and shut mine eyes and steal my breath. Then willingly, oh willingly, I'll go away with thee. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
To a Mouse on Turning Her Up in Her Nest with the Plow, November 1785, by Robert Burns. Read for LibriVox.org by Bryce Cries, Youngstown, November 10, 2021. Wee, sleekit, cowerin', timorous beastie, oh, what a panic's in thy breastie. Thou need not start away sae hasty, with bickering brattle. I wad be laith to rin and chase thee, with murdering paddle. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion which makes thee startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. I doubt now whiles but thou may thieve, what then, poor beastie, thou maun leave? A Damon icker in a thrave is a sma request. I'll get a blessin' with the lave and never miss it. Thy wee bit housie too in ruin, it's silly wise the winds are strewin', and nothin' now to big a new un, o foggage green, and bleak December's winds ensuin', baith snell and keen. Thou saw the fields laid bare and waste, and weary winter comin' fast, and cozy here beneath the blast thou thought to dwell, till crash the cruel coulter passed out thro' thy cell. That wee bit heap o' leaves and stibble has cost thee money a weary nibble. Now thou'st turned out, for all thy trouble, but house or hold, to thole the winter's sleety dribble and crane-rich cold. But mousie, thou art no thy lane, in proving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes o' mice and men gang off the gley, and lee us not but grief and pain for promised joy. Still thou art blessed compared wi' me, the present only toucheth thee, but och, I backward cast my ee on prospects drear, and forward though I cannot see, I guess and fear. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Ah, are you digging on my grave? By Thomas Hardy. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Tomlinson. Ah, are you digging on my grave, my loved one? Planting rue? No, yesterday he went to wed one of the brightest wealth has bred. It cannot hurt her now, he said, that I should not be true. Then who is digging on my grave, my nearest, dearest kin? Ah, no, they sit and think, what use, what good will planting flowers produce? No tendance of her mound can loose her spirit from death's gin. But someone digs upon my grave. My enemy? Prodding sly? Nay, when she heard you had passed the gate that shuts on all flesh soon or late, she thought you no more worth her hate, and cares not where you lie. Then who is digging on my grave? Say, since I have not guessed. Oh, it is I, my mistress dear, your little dog, who still lives near, and much I hope my movements here have not disturbed your rest. Ah, yes, you dig upon my grave. Why flashed it not to me that one true heart was left behind? What feeling do we ever find to equal among humankind a dog's fidelity? Mistress, I dug upon your grave to bury a bone, in case I should be hungry near this spot, when passing on my daily trot. I am sorry, but I quite forgot it was your resting place. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Winter Branches by Margaret Whittemer. Read for LibriVox.org by Amanda Chandler. When wintertime grows weary, I lift my eyes on high and see the black trees standing, stripped clear against the sky. They stand there very silent, with the cold flush sky behind. The little twigs flare beautiful and restful and kind. Clear-cut and certain they rise, with summer past. For all that trees can ever learn, they know now, at last. Slim and black and wonderful, with all unrest gone by, the stripped tree boughs comfort me, drawn clear against the sky. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Written in November by John Clare. Read for LibriVox.org by Moon Lilith. Autumn, I love thy parting look, to view in cold November's day, so bleak and bare, when, thy life's dwindled thread worn nearly through, with lingering, pottering pace, and head bleached bare, thou, like an old man, biddest the world adieu. I love thee well, and often, when a child, have roamed the bare brown heath, a flower to find, and in the moss-clad vale and wood bank wild, have cropped the little bellflowers, pearly blue, that trembling peep the sheltering bush behind. When wintering north winds cold and bleaky blew, how have I joyed with dithering hands to find each fading flower! And still, how sweet the blast! Would bleak November's hour restore the joy that's past. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.